Everybody, peace. It's me, Regina Alison. As you may know, they call me Money because I help nonprofit organizations find donors, and I have helped organizations receive billions and billions of dollars in contributed revenue. So that's why they call me Money, and I'm excited to be here today. I'm always excited to be here today, but I'm here today to talk about the number one way to find money for your nonprofit organization, the number one way to fund your nonprofit. So, the number one way that I have identified or that I've seen work over my last 30 years in professional fundraising for nonprofits of every size and scope, across the country, the number one way to fund your nonprofit. It's going to sound very simple, but it's complex. So, very simple answer is ask people for donations, right? So that seems really simple and super obvious, but it's not as we start to unpack that. So, first, you're asking people, you're asking individuals. Many times we go into a default. We want to ask a company, we want to seek a corporate donation or a corporate grant. And that is certainly one way to fund your nonprofit, but another more sustainable, more efficient, more cost effective way is to ask individual people. And then we also know within the industry of professional fundraising that the number one rule of making let me back that up. The number one rule of fundraising is to make the ask. And although that sounds a bit contrite, it sounds, a bit like, well, that's obvious, right? But oftentimes organizations do not make the ask. And so that's why that is that old standby of the number one rule in fundraising is to make the ask. So actually asking individuals for their support, not just asking for money, but asking for their advocacy, asking for their engagement, asking for their volunteerism, asking for, a variety of calls to action based on your organization, your mission, and your impact. And so I wanted to call those things out because recently I've been meeting with fundraisers, nonprofit founders, executive directors, CEOs, etc., of smaller, some emerging organizations, but mid-sized organizations too that have been around for a little while. And we continue to face the same challenge, this notion of not asking for the support that we need, or making the assumption that the only way that I'm going to receive donations for my organization is by applying for a grant. And while you can receive dollars that way, and that is a viable funding solution for your organization, the the records and the evidence just proves and shows to us that corporate giving only represents a very small piece of the giving pie each year in the United States. And so we know this based on the research done by Giving USA that reports out on the United States philanthropy year over year. So, philanthropy or corporate giving this past year reached 7% of the total giving pie. So, the 557 some odd $billion that were donated in the US alone, of all of those dollars, 7% came from corporations. So when I say to ask people, I'm being very intentional about that and refocusing our efforts and our energies on building relationships with individuals that can move the needle for our organizations in a financial way. So, what this also means for organizations, especially, well, across the board, really, I won't call out any size or scope, what this also means for organizations is that we have to be willing and position ourselves to build relationships with individuals that have giving capacity. That means people that have the ability and the desire and the willingness and all of those things to support and give their money to an organization like yours that is having the impact that your organization is having. So being comfortable with building those relationships, and oftentimes that takes us outside of our comfort zone when we talk about multi-million dollar fundraising campaigns. And then along with that, sort of some nuanced things, being comfortable with saying, I am leading a multi-million dollar fundraising campaign. Not only am I leading it, I believe that I can achieve these goals. And not only do I believe it, here's my impact report to prove that I am meeting some of these goals. I am serving some community, serving some need. I'm having some impact in whatever capacity your mission is aiming for, having the impact reports to prove that yes, we are having this success and the confidence really to again begin to build those relationships with individuals. So, the number one way to fund your nonprofit is by asking individuals for their support. The other thing that is nuanced into this or layered into this, and again, from meeting with a variety of founders and frontline fundraisers, I had a meeting earlier this morning with a couple of colleagues actually. Both are executive directors and nonprofit founders. And so sharing some wisdom with them, some things that I have learned over the last 30 years that sometimes I forget that everybody doesn't have 30 years in major gift fundraising. Everyone else, simply doesn't. They don't have that same experience. And I can appreciate that. So I enjoy sharing nuggets of information. But one of the things that we were talking about this morning is seeking way or finding ways to bring people into the fold, bring people into the universe, into the family, as it were, for your nonprofit organization, especially if you are a startup. So we talked about the idea of hosting salons, which are salon is just an industry term, which is basically the idea of we're hosting a small gathering, sort of small intimate gatherings, 30 people max, where you invite people and you're strategic about who you invite because you want these people to ultimately take some action around making a donation, making connections, or some other advocacy. And so, in having those conversations, the one executive director is like, well, so when do I ask them for money? And it's like, well, not then, not during this conversation. It's sort of that light bulb moment of, oh, I'm not asking them for money at this time. And no, not in that type of setting, not in an introductory salon. But what you are doing is priming the pump. So, sharing the sort of nugget with them around, if you ask for money, you will get advice. But if you ask for advice, you will get money. And so that was a gem that they each found very profound. But that is something that within within my circle of fundraisers, we all kind of lean into that strategy, especially as we are preparing for a major gift solicitation or when we're cultivating a major gift relationship. So especially when it's a new relationship, well, not even then, because it could be existing and maybe you want the individual to like increase their giving, or maybe you want them to take more of a leadership role, or you want them to make a lead gift in some scenario, um, but or just generally deepen the relationship as it relates to giving. But asking for advice is a great way to prime the pump to receive dollars, because oftentimes when you ask for money, people they may not come out and tell you no, but they will say lots of other things, or well, have you tried this and have you tried that? Here's something that I heard worked over at this other organization. organization, etc. So if you ask for money, you'll get advice. But if you ask for advice, you'll get money. And the rationale behind that, one, we've seen it play out many times. But the other piece behind that is once you start to get people investing their energy, their brain power in thinking about your organization and continuing. So again, this is very strategic. We're not asking any and everyone off the street for advice, right? We're being strategic about those partners and those stakeholders who we seek advice from. And so as they build on the relationship they have with you and deepen their mental investment and their heart investment, well, then it's natural that, especially if they have good ideas and you're starting to implement some of them and you really bring them into the fold as a partner with some of this, well, then it's just a natural progression in that relationship and in that investment that now I'm going to make a financial investment. So, the number one way to fund your nonprofit, ask individuals. And then how do you begin to build those relationships and track those relationships is where we're getting into the data management and things like that, which will be, we'll get into, I think I'll have to get into in another video. But you definitely want to make sure you're building those individual relationships. And those are individual relationships with people that can make a $5 donation, a $10 donation, and because we're really comfortable with those relationships, and we want to stretch. And many times, in many scenarios, this will be a stretch for us. It doesn't matter if you're a new fundraiser or a new founder, nonprofit founder, or if you've been doing this work for 30, 40 years. That can be a stretch for many people to be intentional about building relationships with individuals that have capacity to make charitable donations, charitable gifts, uh, of five and six figure gifts. So a 50,000, 60,000, 100,000 and above that can be made out of their personal, their personal portfolio, could be made through a family foundation. Those donations could be made through a number of vehicles, but really focusing on our individual relationships is so key. And so, of course, there are always opportunities to learn more. And I encourage and invite you to check out some of the upcoming Research Pro events. There are two that I'm really looking forward to later this month on Wednesday, October 29th at 2 p.m. Eastern. We're doing a virtual webinar. So it's called Data Knows Best, taking the guesswork out of your donor stewardship. And that's a collaboration between myself and another great colleague, Lisa Rovner with LKR Strategies. So Research Pro and LKR Strategies are teaming up to bring you Data Knows Best, taking the guesswork out of your donor stewardship. Again, that's on Wednesday, October 29th at 2 p.m. Eastern, and it is a webinar. There's a link in the description so you can get to the website and find that and register for that. Sign up for that. So not many of you, but over the last couple of months, I've had a couple of really good friends and colleagues reach out and say that, and comment on the fact that I host most of my webinars on Thursdays. And there's a personal reason behind that, but that I host most of my webinars and other educational events on Thursdays. So we switched it up a little bit for this next one. And it's a Wednesday, October 29th at 2 p.m. So my friends on the West Coast, you'll be able to join us as well without getting up at the crack of dawn. So we're looking forward to that. Lisa's amazing. Check out some of my other social posts and you'll see links to her and more information about Lisa Rovner with LKR Strategies. So that's the first event. And then the second event that I have coming up before end of year is November 11th. So 11/11 for those of us that are in the know. On 11/11, which is also Veterans Day, Research Pro is coming back with our second in-person symposium. So some of you were around last year for our first one, Data Donors Dollars, this symposium. We're coming back. We're coming back off of that sold out success on November 11th. This year, the theme is Worth More, the symposium for women in leadership and fundraising. So this year, we are sort of switching gears a little bit. So it's professional development plus wellness plus empowerment plus a whole vibe. So I'll be there delivering the Worth More keynote. I'm partnering with Helena Warren of Thrive by Design, a wellness practitioner. She's going to do a whole wellness session. And then I'm super, super excited about our sister circle. So we're going to have a sister circle panel and conversation featuring some amazing women in leadership and nonprofit fundraising. We've got Sandra Moody with Dehan Enterprises. We also have Sierra Frazier with Rich Credit Academy, Keena Smith with the Women's Center for Economic Opportunity, and Makiba McIntosh, who is over fundraising at the YWCA Columbus. It's going to be powerful. It's going to be so good. Every time I look at the flyer, I just get chills. So Worth More is really, it's a step on my faith walk. It's me being obedient. It's me answering the call from so many of my fundraising friends across the country, across the globe, actually, the United States and Canada and other places. This notion of, women in this space, Black women in this space, women of color in leadership and fundraising, facing so many of the same challenges, are seeing our nonprofit organizations this past year really be impacted by severe defunding and shifting policies, etc., shifting priorities, all the things. But yet we keep showing up, but yet we keep showing up, doing our best, not just doing our best, that, going above and beyond for these organizations and these causes and these missions that, we are really passionate about and are very important to the well-being of the world we live in. And so, really wanted to just kind of take a moment to pause and offer a different narrative, offer a different experience, a different professional experience at the end of this year. And as we position ourselves to enter 2026, women drive so much change and impact and success as fundraisers, as business leaders, as the champions of community, all the things. I don't want to get too much on my soapbox about that, but again, this is Research Pros opportunity in partnership with Thrive by Design, an opportunity to offer something else to the women that we see doing such important and great work in this space. So again, it's part fundraising education. So I'll be there for that. I know I love data. I love talking about, I can talk donors all day, talk donor to me all day, every day. So that will be sort of a line through in the keynote, but it is open. So if you're not a fundraising professional, if you're not a director of development, there is absolutely space for you. There's space for you to learn. If you care about a nonprofit, if you serve on the nonprofit board, if you're, donating to a nonprofit and you want to see them succeed, then there's space for you. So we'll have a little bit of fundraising education for the masses. We'll have the wellness experience, followed by the sister circle panel and conversation. Lunch is included, so I certainly encourage you to come out for that. We're being hosted by Encova Insurance, which is in downtown Columbus. So shout out to our partners at Encova. Shout out to our friend and our brother and colleague Ralph Smithers at Encova. So we're really, really pleased with that partnership, as well as the other partners that have returned this year. including the Ohio Association of Nonprofit Organizations. And I almost forgot. Quick shout out to the United Way of Central Ohio. They're back as a partner, underwriting. Providing scholarships for their nonprofit grant partners to attend. So, if you don't already have your coupon code and you want to come to the Worth More Symposium, check your email from United Way or follow up with your United Way contact directly to get the coupon code so you can register and attend Worth More for free. So shout out to United Way of Central Ohio. Also shout out to the Women's Fund of Central Ohio because they're doing the same thing. So we are really, really pleased with those partners and really grateful about those partnerships. So the United Way is underwriting 20, and I think a couple have already been claimed. The Women's Fund is underwriting 5, and 2 have already been claimed. So those are going pretty quickly, and that was as of yesterday. So if you're interested in that and you're already a partner with those organizations, reach out to them, check your email, and get your coupon code. So, again, the number one way to fund your nonprofit, ask people. And it seems so obvious, right? But there are lots of layers and there are lots of levels and there are nuances to it. And I invite you to come out and learn how to do that, how to find the people to ask, how to find the data, how to find those contacts and build strategy and build a system and the process to support your fundraising operation. So hope to see you on Wednesday, October 29th, virtually for Data Knows Best, which is a webinar on Zoom featuring me and Lisa Rovner. And I also hope to see you live and in person in Columbus, Ohio, in downtown Columbus, Ohio, on Tuesday, November 11th, which is 11/11, also Veterans Day, for Worth More, the symposium for women in leadership and fundraising. So I'll see you next week. Or actually, Lisa and I are planning to